I've invited someone that I've known for quite a while in recovery and on my sobriety journey, who I respect a great deal and just has a solid sobriety, and I think has a lot to teach when telling their story. So I would like to introduce to you my friend Zanner.
Hi, everyone. Zanner here. I'd like to say it's great to be here, but I'm really nervous now. So thank you, Bridget, for asking me to speak. Bridget's asked me a few times now to speak, and I keep putting her off because she's someone that I admire and respect a lot as well. And I have this total like inferiority concept where I don't think that I'm good enough and that I don't want to disappoint her. So I'm always like, no, 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 no. But, this is recovery and I'm trying to be who I am today, not who I used to be, which was someone who ran away all the time. So I've been thinking a lot lately about, about who am I? Who is Zanner today? I just had a big anniversary for being in recovery, and it's put me in a really reflective place. I experience life based on filters of my experience, and that's sort of where I operate from. When I was growing up, those experiences were not healthy. I come from a family of multiple generations of addictions and people who are inflicted with, a lot of mental health ailments, and just a lot of really violent, illegal, inappropriate things for people to be involved in, never mind children. And that's given me, I learned very young a really distorted perception of what life is and what the world is and my place in it and my value in it, my purpose in it, and it's taking me quite a few years to dismantle that. Like I started off, with my coping mechanisms and all that kind of stuff was learning to um, disappear, for me to leave, to disappear. And from that really small hiding place inside, to look at you to see where I should go, how I should be, so I can try and find the safest place for me to fit in, right? And normally that meant doing a lot of subjective subjectivity on my part of trying to figure out what you want, you know. And then I went from that to actually physically running away. And then running away, first starting with drugs, because that was my first accessible access that I had was to drugs more so than alcohol, because I come from I was born a heroin baby. My mom was a junkie, and she was a junkie until the day that she died, which was about 20 years ago now. She never did get clean and sober. So the people, the adults that were in my life were actually people from, bunch of drug dealers and drug traffickers. My mom did time for drug trafficking. I was around the Hells Angels a lot, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can just I don't want to go into like details about things, but I had all these things were very easily accessible for me to access. So I started using drugs. By the time I was 12, I was, dropping acid and smoking dope and taking pills and like all that kind of stuff. And by the time I was 15, that was when I started getting into alcohol. So I learned a lot of ways, a lot of really maladaptive ways of how to be as a person, how to live as a person, and who I was and how to show up in life. When that stuff wasn't working anymore, when that stuff wasn't protecting, when people, places, and things were no longer protecting me from life and protecting me from myself, I went to self-harm, and I went to suicide ideology and multiple suicide attempts. And that's like I have a lot of shame around that. And I have a lot of shame around my existence as a human being. But I'm at a place now where I'm learning to this radical acceptance through my therapy and through, secular recovery and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm learning to embrace myself, like all parts of me. But so my first suicide attempt was when I was 12. And that was a way of actually protecting myself, because I didn't like where I was at and I didn't like what was going on, right? And I didn't have the ability to endure it anymore, So by the time I came to the rooms when I was 24, I had spent multiple years living on the street, more on the street than off. I had had multiple suicide attempts, in and out of hospitals multiple times from ODs and alcohol poisoning and like all that kind of stuff. And this was just, all this stuff was just normal. It was just, that's just what life was, right? I didn't have any other experience of it being any different, right? Until I came to recovery. So when I came into the room September 1st, 1991. So I just had 31 years of being in recovery. And it has not been, it's not been easy, like when I first came in the rooms, like in Toronto, they read, like a part of their preamble all the time was like reading the promises, right? They read that at the beginning of every meeting. And I was just like, wow, I want that. Wow, like, okay, let's go for it. Let's do this kind of thing, right? And to this day, most of those promises have not come true for me. Not yet. One thing that I have managed to obtain in recovery is hope, which is something that I never had before, right? And the idea and the idea that there is something to move towards, So it hasn't been an easy journey, because I've had a lot of stuff to unpack, right? I've had a lot of trauma to unpack. I've had a lot of mental health issues to manage through, to work through, to understand. I've been on so many different medications. I've had so many different diagnoses. And every time they diagnose me with something else, they throw another medication at me and all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, that has been helpful. And sometimes it wasn't, because sometimes like the medication made things worse, so it's for as much as science is involved in it, it's a roulette game as well, right? But I have had numerous extended periods of time where the medication has been okay, like it's settled me down, and then I've been able to show up here, right, when I get that chemical balance sorted out inside myself, right, through the medications and stuff, that gives me the ability to show up here and do everything else that I need to do, because the medication is not the solution to everything. That doesn't fix me, right? But it does help me, right? It's a key foundational piece of my sobriety and my recovery. So it allows me to be able to think a little bit clearer, right? It allows me to be able to sit in my own skin and to come to meetings and find my program and work the steps and go to therapy and like do all that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, so medication is a really big part of my recovery. So I've been, over the years, I've been able to systematically dismantle all these filters and perceptions and beliefs and experiences that I've gone through. It's taken me a long time to get to the point of where I am. It's only been the last 2 years since the pandemic and finding secular AA that I've actually found that's where I found my hope, and that's where I found my my desire to actually be here. Even in all these years of recovery, even in recovery, I've had 2 suicide episodes. And one of them I was successful at just before my 10th year of sobriety. Obviously, I was revived. And the second time was about 2 years ago. Just when I started finding finding these rooms. But it's been in secular recovery that I have been able to come to a place of, with the support of secular recovery, to really find and encourage to find my own path, as opposed to following someone else's path. And part of that, well, most of that is on me, right? Because that's my last, like, those defense mechanisms, those ways of being that I've learned growing up, right? Like, I've systematically broke it back down to my early stages of my life of what I used to be here, right? So the last things that I picked up were drugs and alcohol. Those were the first things to go. Then when I stopped using drugs and alcohol, I switched over to people again, right? And then I switched over to, self-harm and all that kind of stuff. So I've systematically have faced all of those things, right? So I don't drink and drug anymore, right? Suicide is now not an option for me anymore. I can't hide in that. I can't hide in self-harm anymore. I don't do these things anymore. And I am not hiding in relationships anymore, right? I've stripped away all these things that I've used to protect myself and hide myself in, and what's left is me, right? So now I'm at the point where I'm really looking at myself, and I'm finding and learning about what works for me, right? And secular recovery has encouraged that with me. When I was going to regular meetings, the mainstream meetings, it was like, oh no, you believe in God and you have to do it this way, and you've got to, like, follow the big book and follow the 12 and 12, and if you want what we have, you have to do it the way we do it, and like all that kind of stuff, right? And I was trying that, but again, that's someone else's program. That's not my program, right? So I'm learning my program. All right. I'm learning to look at all these conditioned responses that I have in life, the way I think, the way I feel, my relationship to my thoughts, my relationships to my feelings, my relationship to myself, right? And I'm looking at that stuff and I'm learning to challenge that, right? My thoughts and feelings, um, my thoughts and feelings, my whole life were my higher power. They were what they owned me, right? Any feeling I had, oh my God, that's what I am. Any thought that I had, oh my God, that's what I am, right? Like they owned me, right? And I'm learning now that they actually don't. I don't give my thoughts and my feelings that kind of power and control over me anymore, right? I'm learning to sit with myself. I'm learning this radical acceptance of like, yeah, I've got like a lot of shit that I'm dealing with. I'm a very hurt and wounded person, right? And I've got a lot of healing to do, right? It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to it's okay to cry. It's okay to be me and have these feelings, right? And when I can accept these things and not run away from them, not try to change them, not try to hide from them, when I just let them be what they are, that's where I find my healing. And that's where I find me in that healing, you know? And it's the same thing with my thoughts, right? Like I have all these conceptions and all these beliefs that I grew up with, that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. I'm a product of incest, right? I was the shame of my family, right? And I'm now seeing that, you know what? That's my family's shame. That's not my shame, right? I'm not owning that anymore. I'm not taking that on as my own anymore, right? That stuff doesn't get to hurt me today, right? Um, I used to believe that, um, I had a lot of shame around my sexuality and my gender, right? Because I grew up like it's a sin to be gay, right? Not my shame, not my sin. I grew up like I'm stupid. I'm incapable of learning. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. All that kind of stuff. Not my stuff. What you think and your judgment of me, that's your judgment and your thoughts, not mine. I don't have to own that shit as mine anymore today. Right? I get to find I get to find out who is Zanner, right? And to do that, I need to sit with me, right? I get to come here with you guys, right? And you support me and you hold my hand as I walk into my darkness and I find me and I hold my hand and we walk through my darkness together, because that's where I am. I'm in my fear, I'm in my pain, I'm in my darkness, you know, and I'm learning with you guys how to go in there and get me and bring me out, and I get to do and I do that today, and it's fucking scary, but it is so freeing and it is so healing, and it's actually beautiful. And I'm so like incredibly grateful today that I'm here and that I get to do this today, because it's I don't believe in change. I don't believe in change. I think that um you know that as I heal through all these things that have been projected onto me, as I heal through all these features, I'm being revealed. I'm not changing. I'm being the essence of who I am is being revealed. And if you want to put it in like AA terms, that's my spiritual awakening, is me finding me and me being here today, you know? And and that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing. That's a beautiful thing. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm at a place right now where I'm stepping into another chapter of my life that is absolutely fucking terrifying me. I'm being I'm going through a divorce after 18-year marriage. I'm leaving my job that I've been at for quite a few years now. I'm going to be leaving my home, you know. I don't know where I'm going to land, right? But I know how I'm going to land. And that is in a place of healing and a place of recovery, because that's the journey that I'm on today. That's where I choose to live today, right? That I am totally empowered of how I show up in my life today, right? And that's staying in a place of healing and recovery. And I'm really grateful for that. And for as scared as I am for the next steps that I'm taking, I'm pretty fucking excited about it. So I appreciate you all. It's wonderful to be here. Bridget, thank you for asking me to share. And thank you so much for being such a huge part of my recovery. I love you. You're awesome. And just everyone, please just be you today and love yourself. You're all fantastic. Thank you.